Anyone's done a session already this morning, I'm very impressed. Kudos to you. My name is Matthew Burdett, and along with my colleague Malini Chatterjee and Fullsteam CTO Sajan Sankaran, we're going to spend the next 45 minutes or so talking about strategies and plans to help you migrate and modernize and ultimately help grow your business. So let's dive in and let's start with some definitions. So whilst everyone probably knows what I mean when I say migration, what I really mean is, a lift and shift or a rehosting of your environment and not making too much change to the environment or the application. Modernizations, on the other hand, slightly different. Let's double click on that. When most people think about modernizations or the path to modernizations, they think about this. They think about moving from VMs to containers and maybe serverless. Let's gloss over the fact that perhaps containers and serverless are often the same thing. You can have a container running as a serverless instance. But the point is, I want you to think about it a little bit more holistically than just the runtime. It isn't just the runtime. I think you need to think about this in terms of if you're hand cranking your deployments, you probably don't have a truly modern environment. If you don't have automation, it's probably not a modern environment. If you have a lack of observability or you're not taking advantage of managed services, it's probably not a modernized environment. And the same is true with your actual application architecture. If you have a monolith, if it's written in COBOL, it's probably not a modernized architecture or a modernized environment. So I'd encourage you to think about this as modernization is more than just the runtime. Please don't get hung up on that. So now that we know what we're talking about, let's understand why people are doing it. Well, as you can imagine, whether you migrate or you modernize, you're going to receive some benefits. You're going to realize some benefits within your environment. Everyone will talk about cost savings, kind of table stakes. You're going to see that regardless. But the key point is that you're also going to see improvements in your staff productivity, and you're going to start to see more efficiencies within your overall IT infrastructure. A friend of mine and an ex-colleague made this comment once, and whilst I don't fully agree with him, I understand where he's coming from. If you do just lift and shift, you're not really taking full advantage of the cloud. There's a lot more to cloud than just recreating your data center in AWS. So thanks, Gregor. You're kind of right, but I agree with your sentiment. So if you do look to modernize, if you do look to go beyond just that lift and shift, what would you typically see? Well, we talked about the cost savings. You're going to be using an optimized infrastructure, you're going to be reducing your costs, but more importantly, from my perspective, you're going to be increasing your business agility. And by that I mean, you're going to be using a modern architecture, you're going to be far faster to market with a lot of your applications, and you're going to be more agile, you're going to be more adaptable. Thirdly, you're going to start using probably managed services. You're also probably going to use multiple regions. Therefore, your operational resilience is going to improve. So you're going to realize some benefits from that as well. And finally, that staff productivity piece. Because you're using those managed services, because you're working in an environment that's easy to spin up, easy to spin down, individuals who work on your teams are going to be able to focus their efforts on more differentiating type of activities. So the business agility and the improvements you're going to get within your business are going to be greater because they're going to focus on things that actually matter to your business. And that's key. Don't just take my word for it. Smart people at McKinsey have said that the opportunity for customers that move beyond the lift and shift is $3 trillion. Now, a couple of points there. That's just for the largest 2,000 companies in the world. Mm-hmm. So the actual opportunity is far greater than that. The second key point is that 2.3 trillion of that 3 trillion number is derived from business agility, innovation, and operational resilience. So it's not related to the cost savings. So that's what I want you to focus on. That's what I would encourage you to think about as we go through this. So with all of that said, why is it that we kind of see that this is certainly historically has been the typical customer journey that customers go through? You know, this kind of two-step process of starting with a migration and then moving to a modernization later on. The reality is that historically at least, people want to make progress fast. They want to get to the cloud as fast as they possibly can and then do the modernization later. They want to build kind of a skill set within their organization. And so that's completely fine. And full disclosure, long before I joined AWS, I was an AWS customer and I was faced with that same challenge. And I took that same approach. I took the approach of migrating first and then modernizing second. And the reason I did that was because, frankly, I didn't think that I had the right people and the organization was not yet ready for a full, truly modernized cloud environment. 8 years ago, 9 years ago, when I was making these decisions, skill sets weren't widely available in the marketplace. People didn't really know how to operate a cloud environment effectively. So I made that decision. That was a big part of the decision why I went down that route. Secondly, there are multiple references to cake in this presentation. There is too much choice. One of the great things about AWS is the breadth and depth of services we have. One of the worst things about AWS is the breadth and depth of services we have because there's so much choice. And sometimes knowing what service to use can just be an overwhelming experience. Given that we didn't have a ton of experience within the organization of cloud environments, I felt that too many choices was actually a bad thing. So I wanted to keep it nice and simple for us. I didn't want to end up with this kind of decision fatigue where we were continuously, evaluating whether we'd made the right choice around services. But if that was then, and that was about 8 or 9 years ago, as I said, what would we need to do to make the change today? Like, how could we change the overall customer journey so that that first step is to have more modernized workloads in that first wave of your effort? What would we need to do that? Well, the reality is that if migration is an evolution, then modernization is more of a transformation. And so what I would encourage you to start thinking about, and probably in this order of importance, is building the right culture within your organization to support that transformation. That needs to come from the top. You need top-down direction around how you're going to build the culture within your organization. Make sure that you're focusing on innovation. Innovation is, again, go back to that McKinsey number, innovation was the biggest driver of that $3 trillion number. So you're going to need to build a culture within your organization that's comfortable with innovating and that every single member of your organization feels empowered to innovate and use the right services. People and process. Unsurprisingly, this is the hard part. You need to train your organization. You need to make a commitment to train your organization. You need to have evangelists within the organization that are going to lead the rest of the organization through this. This starts at the top, but you need to have evangelists across the organization, and you need to prepare your organization for that. And finally, and there is a reason this is third, technology. The other two trump technology. The technology will continue to evolve, and so focusing everything on just the technology change, you're probably not going to get too far. You need to focus on all of these three things. So, with that said, another reference to cake. Is it possible, and I believe it is because I've seen customers do this now, is it possible to have your cake and eat it? Can you do both a successful migration and modernization, a combination of both, or could you just move straight to a modernized architecture from the start? I want to bring in a friend and also an AWS customer. Sajan Sankaran, the CTO of Fullsteam, he's doing exactly this, and he can give you some more insight into that.
Thank you, Matthew.
Thanks.
Okay, so before we go further, let's go back and look at that picture there. Matthew actually wanted a picture of me gobbling a piece of cake, but lucky for me, we were able to find a very old picture of Matthew instead. Anyway, Matthew, Malini, thanks for having me here. Thanks for you guys to helping me share what we are doing at Fullsteam with respect to modernization and transformation. So before I go further, let me introduce Fullsteam to you guys. So Fullsteam is a multi-vertical software company with attached payments. Fullsteam has grown through acquisitions. We have about 80 plus acquisitions so far. So these are companies who provide vertical software through to niche customers. So these are companies like yours, I hope, right? So we have over 60,000 customers, unique customers across these 80 plus business units. Actually, we call them as business units, right? So once we acquire these companies, we call them as business units. So we have about 80 plus business units, and between them, we have about 60,000 unique customers that we serve with niche software. And of course, payment is the central theme of our business, and we have about $18 billion worth of payment volume going through our system every year. So I talked about 80 plus business units, and these 80 plus business units are in over 12 different verticals. So on your way to this conference, if you parked your car in the airport, or if you have taken a black car to get here, very likely you used Fullsteam software for that, or the provider used Fullsteam software for that. If you own a home and have homeowners association or pest control, or even servicing your heating and cooling system, very likely you used a Fullsteam system. If you are into drinking some wine and enjoy wine, and if you are part of a wine club, very likely you used a Fullsteam software. So Fullsteam is one company, or if you play golf, or eat at restaurants, very likely you used Fullsteam software as part of that. So Fullsteam is one company that you don't realize that you are using, but it's there. If you use a small and a medium business software or a service provider, very likely you use Fullsteam. So Fullsteam is made up of these diverse set of companies, and with that comes a diverse set of technical challenges to deal with. So before I go into the technical challenges, let me talk a little bit about what these 80 plus acquisitions benefit from Fullsteam, right? What is their, what are they gaining by being part of Fullsteam family? One, they get access to 60,000 unique customers who are happy, and we have a healthy relationship with them. So it's easy for these new business units or new companies that we bring in to be able to cross-sell to those customers. An example, if a new restaurant software that we bring in, they're able to sell that to country club, where we already have a golf software running, right? So, or if you are, Fullsteam also provides common platform and add-on capabilities. So these business units, as they come into Fullsteam, they are very quickly able to take advantage of the Fullsteam platform and add-on services. It's not just the payments. We also have marketing, insurance, and other services. So an example would be storage facility software. That's again, we have quite a few in Fullsteam, and they are able to very quickly provide insurance for storage units, by a quick integration with our platform. So the next is Fullsteam providing an enterprise caliber sales and services team. So, especially when we bring in these small and medium software companies, we are able to, provide an enterprise caliber sales and services team, financial and analysis, billing and entitlement management systems to these providers, to these companies that we bring in. But the most important of them all is about technology, right? So what are we doing there? So when you join Fullsteam, we are able to provide the right level of expertise when it comes to technology. And I'll double click on that in a second. So to kind of recap something Matthew finished, he was talking about 3 themes that matters the most, right, for a successful cloud migration, cloud modernization. One is culture, right? So as part of culture, Matthew talked about how it needs to start from the very top and how the business goals and the technology goals need to align. At Fullsteam, we aligned the business goals and the technology goals and drove the change from the very top. Aligned operations, mandate to migration to the cloud, innovation first mentality, and most importantly, making our software products the best of the breed came from the very top. So here today, I have a couple of our portfolio presidents here who kind of control the 81 business units. So if you guys want to talk a little bit about what we do outside, we'll be waiting out. We can talk to you a little more about it. Okay. Anyway, so back on the technology transformation. Aligning the technology goals with the business goals is the key. And to do that, what we did here is we tried to plot all the 80-some business units in this 4-box. So we took the business units, and on the left you can see the software product market fit, and on the right you see the payment product market fit, because that's where the business units get most of their revenue from, either from selling the software, recurring revenue from software, or through the payments. So we plotted the 80+ business units on this 4-box just to see where they are so that we can focus on the right business unit with the right strategy. So each one of these business units on this graph have a business strategy, and now we need to be able to align the technology strategy for it. So take, business unit in box 2, for example. We would want to be able to add more payment features so that we are able to, make them as the best in breed, get them onto the top right corner. So, business units within box 1 take ISI software, which is in the bottom left corner of box 1. There are so many new features and capabilities through AI and other things that we are driving, which will make them the best of the breed and best in class software. So let me take you to the next slide. This is basically about the technology 4-box, right? So in the previous slide, we talked about the product 4-box. So we took the business units from box 1 and 2 of the product, meaning these are the ones which have the highest potential for very quick transformation, and we plotted them in a technology 4-box. So we actually took about 50 different data points with respect to technical stack, hosting environment, security, development tools and practices, and et cetera. So over 50 different data points, and we plotted those business units on this 4-box. So to make it simpler, we took the business units from box 1 and 2 so that you can actually follow, so not all the 80. So the ones that have the highest potential, we put them on this box. And as you can see, the business units in box 1 have a fantastic cloud maturity and R&D practices and tools. But we do have quite a few business units in box 3 that we need to work on. And basically, we are talking about what do we do to transform those business units. And we have been working with Malini and the AWS team on transforming each one of these business units to move up to box 1. Let me invite Malini to kind of double click into what actions we are performing on those business units to move them to the top right corner.
Perfect. Thank you, Sajan.
Thank you.
Thank you for believing in AWS and us and partnering with us. So let's first start with some of the successes that our customers like Sajan has achieved, and then we will see the how part of it. In AWS, we have taken a lot of survey with questioning around 400, 500 customers about their cloud migration and modernization journey. In doing so, the results that we have found significantly are in the 3 key areas. The first one is the agility, or improving the speed of innovation. The second is improving the performance and resiliency. And third, last but not the least, efficiency and improving the cost optimization. Now let's take Fullsteam business units examples. Aura started their lift and shift journey and now are in the scaling and modernization journey. Same with Limo Anywhere, Salon Runner. Optical POS actually started their lift and shift journey way back, and now they have been successfully modernizing using the data migration and data modernization journey, and now they have achieved over 10x of their customer base improvement and more acquisitions just by reducing their IT spend. And that's a significant result from just one business unit, optical POS. We will delve deep into that more. Now let's see how AWS can help customers like Fullsteam across that migration and modernization journey. We do understand every customer is different and they do have varied needs. Same like the different business units of Fullsteam. So typically here what you see, we have plotted the time on the x-axis, and there are two trends on the y-axis. The one which trending downwards is reducing the compute costs, and the one on the blue trending upwards is increasing the innovation or the speed of innovation. So as customers embark on their cloud migration and modernization journey, typically we have seen around 20% of the per CPU cycle unit cost reduction just by lift and shift, just by starting to migrate over to the cloud. Now, by further right sizing their resources, breaking away from the licenses, and by just understanding what is the right model of their usage and what payment suits them, they can actually achieve 10 to 20% more savings on top of it. But that's where the magic starts to happen. It does not end there. From there on, you can see or use more modernization techniques, and using those modernization techniques, which we will be seeing a little bit later, you can see or achieve 60% more cost savings and improvements. And all of that savings actually does go into speeding up your innovation. So how do we do that? Let's double tap on that 60% more cost savings from the different modernization pathways. Now, what are these modernization pathways? I would like to say, as a solution architect, they are some prescriptive guidance which we provide, and we have seen with multiple customers using some of these guidance to get to their reference architectures in those targeted technology developments. This is highly scalable. You learn once, repeat it often, and scale it infinitely. Let's see some of those modernization pathways. The first is move to cloud native. This is where you start decoupling from your monolith architecture into more loosely coupled distributed architecture and build scalable applications. Actually, Sajan did point out about ISI software. ISI software did start their initial journey just by adopting this modernization pathway. Next is move to containers. This is where you can start migrating your existing workloads using the container orchestration strategies. ERS actually embarked on their modernization journey using containerization. Next is adopting the managed databases. This is where you can break away from your traditional licensed databases and data warehouses and actually go and build purpose-built, highly scalable distributed applications using the managed databases. Aura actually did use Aurora Postgres for the same purpose. Move to open source. This is where you move, as the name suggests, move away from the traditional licenses into more of the open source software for the ease of use and flexibility. Example, ERS. Then move to modern analytics. As the name suggests, build highly scalable data lake architectures with real-time analytics. Optical POS have been doing that with their data migration and modernization journey using Glue and Athena. Last but not the least, using modern DevOps. That's where you can use all of the CI/CD best practices for improving your agility and speed up your innovation. Now, with that being said, we have heard from Matthew already about those 3 pillars to drive that modernization. Matthew, I do remember the order that you mentioned. First comes culture, then comes people and the processes, and then comes the technology. Now, being an SA myself and seeing around all of the changes happening, especially from the latest announcements in AI and ML, how come if we suggest that technology is not only that enabler which is going to provide you the tooling for your people to upskill or to automate some of the processes, but that is the enabler to foster that culture of innovation? How? That's where Gen AI comes into the picture. Anybody raise hands who is here to learn more about the latest and the greatest from the Gen AI announcements in reInvent? Yeah, same, almost even me over here. So now let's start with the Gen AI journey. In 2023, actually, it was a year where a lot of discovery, customers were getting started, some already got some initial success. And in 2024, all across this year and way forward, it's going to be very, very different. Already what we are seeing, our customers are actually starting their journey to adopt generative AI and accelerate at an unprecedented pace. There are already some of the areas where we are seeing some disruption. In fact, the Gen AI supported human workers are already showing 30% more productivity on an average. And Gartner actually has predicted that by 2026, around 80% of the enterprises will have the Gen AI APIs, deployed models, or Gen AI enabled apps in their production. Now, customers definitely want to take the advantage of what the public knowledge and the large language models available out there. How about we provide access to the employees in those large enterprises to have access to their own data, enterprise data, and take decisions faster and quicker. Some of those early areas where we are seeing disruption is cloud development or software development, and that's an early disruption, and customers are trying to adopt as fast as they can to provide the same to their employees and their developers to stay ahead of the competition. That's where Amazon Q comes into the picture. Last year in reInvent, in 2023, we heard a lot of the big announcement. I'm sure there are going to be more announcements. I'm not going to steal the thunder by giving away some of those announcements now. You have to hold on for the keynotes. But what I definitely can say is the experience that the customers are already sharing with us since the past 1 year, their experience using Amazon Q. Just a quick recap, Amazon Q Business is your most capable generative AI assist to discover your content, generate summaries, write efficient emails, and increase your employees' productivity. Amazon Q Developer, using the cutting edge Gen AI technology in code development, unit test cases across your software development lifecycle. Amazon Q in QuickSight, which increases the productivity by enabling Gen AI in your business analytics and the business intelligence capabilities for your BI needs, for creating reports, dashboards, even executive summaries or so. Amazon Q in Connect, enabling your call center representatives to get the responses faster and better to the end users and increase the customer satisfaction. And last but not the least, Q in Supply Chain for your demand planning and getting all the ML insights in your supply chain applications. Now let's delve deep into how Q Developer can help across the software development lifecycle. In the software development lifecycle, in the planning phase, you can imagine and start using Amazon Q Developer, Amazon Q in the AWS console, learning more about the architectures, getting the tutorials, how to get started things, and even learn more about the well-architected framework. Not only that, in your IDE, you can actually learn more from your existing code base, understand the code base using Amazon Q. In the create phase, you can use Amazon Q's inline code assistance to generate new features in a more efficient way. In the test and secure phase, Amazon Q can actually help in finding and fixing troubleshooting errors, security vulnerabilities, and also help in the unit test case generation capabilities. In the operate phase, it can help in troubleshooting, analyzing your VPC reachability or so, and can provide further tips and tricks for optimization. Last but not the least, in the maintain and modernize phase, it can also help you in upgrading your software versions, and we'll see it in a little bit. Amazon Q business capabilities for any software development lifecycle or the project lifecycle, when the analysts also are starting to gather the information, you can discover more of that information from your internal wikis, SharePoint, all of your enterprise data connected to provide a unified search experience. You can analyze, quickly understand the documents, compare between those documents, and get even create some of the specs. In the create phase, it can actually create content, summarize the content, help in creating your product specifications, business specifications, technological specifications or so, and then take action. Many a times you have seen that based on some of these responses, when you are building the app or designing an application or in your technology components, you need to have actions taken for troubleshooting. For example, go and create a ticket in your ticketing system. Using Amazon Q Business custom plugins, you can actually do that. Not only that, you can have the capability of scheduling an appointment or scheduling a further action seamlessly using Q Business. Last but not the least, of all of these activities that Amazon Q Business is helping with, you can create highly customized applications to automate some of these processes. Now let's talk about the software development platform altogether. The success of that software development platform highly depends on the, how the developers are performing and what is that load, cognitive load on that developers. If we can use generative AI as a catalyst, it can improve significantly your platform engineering capabilities. I'll give you here 3 use cases using Amazon Q and Amazon Q Business and Amazon Q Developer, where you can actually improve your platform engineering. First is a chatbot capability using Q Business, where you can get help of learning more about the playbooks, your runbooks, troubleshooting documents, and also your access to the unified data for your knowledge bases or your knowledge repositories for your enterprise data. Second is the Amazon Q Developer customization capability can actually help generate some of those platform artifacts. Like if you can connect it with Amazon Q Developer customization capability, some of those platform templates, then what it essentially can do is provide you or the developers assistance in a much faster way, so that when they are starting to create a code or an application in their IDE, you get to maintain the standards that your company or your organization needs to have for the developer. And last but not the least, use QDev as SDE, as your dev team extension. There is inline code creation assistance in the IDE. There is unit test case generation in IDE, as well as helping finding and fixing some of the errors and security vulnerabilities. Using these 3 use cases, you can see how significantly that cognitive load on the developers can be reduced and inline improve the platform engineering. Now, last but not the least, what I would also like to share over here is, even in the software development lifecycle, you can take the assistance of generative AI to create the code, but there is the pain of maintaining the code, upgrading the code base from one version to the other. Even before joining AWS in one of our large financial institutions, me and my team were responsible for the scheduled maintenance every other week. And as you can understand, it was always happening in the non-office hours, like outside work hours, over the weekends. So my team members, the developers or so, they had to spend significant amount of the time sitting and upgrading the software versions, installing the latest security patches to enable that we provide that seamless experience to our end customers and have that, latest and the greatest software which is secure and scalable. How about I say today with Amazon Q Developer code transformation, that cognitive load on the developers can be reduced drastically. With Q Developer code transformation capability, you can actually upgrade Java 8 to Java 17 code with just a few clicks of a button, and that significantly decreases the amount of time needed to upgrade and maintain the software versions. And that's just one. I'm sure there will be more announcements underway which you will be hearing, and even I'm excited to learn more about them. With that being said, what I can see over here is technology is not that third pillar as Matthew was mentioning. But to me, and that's my perception, I feel technology is at the center. It's the enabler for fostering that culture of innovation in your organization, assisting all of your people and automating your processes. With that being said, I would hand it over to Matt.
I have to have the final word on this. All right, I concede. Technology is still important, as long as it's in support of culture or people or process. That's my concession. That's all I'm going to make. All right, so we're going to wrap up. So I want to try and distill a lot of what we've talked about this morning into 6 key themes as to around how you can drive this. And again, this is applicable to both migration and modernization, or a hybrid of both. But obviously it starts from the top. You have to establish a clear vision, and that has to come from leadership. You have to have your organization bought into it, and it starts at the very, very top. The second thing I would encourage you to do is take a leaf out of Fullsteam's book. The process that Sajan talked you through around understanding the value of the business product, and then the capabilities, or the current capabilities, and the potential of the technology solutions they had, that mapping is really, really important. I refer to it as sometimes as kind of wave planning, but that's what you need to do. You need to align both the business outcomes you're looking to achieve and the technology that you actually have in your environment. You do need to create some best practices or a reference architecture. And once you apply that best practices and that reference architecture against the wave planning, what you're going to end up with is some quick wins. You're going to get some quick wins from going through that process, which in turn is going to build momentum. It's going to build excitement within your organization, and you're going to start winning the hearts and minds of the individuals within the teams, and that's going to allow you to move faster. You might like to think about these 6 things as almost like a flywheel. We like flywheels at Amazon. You'll probably hear about an Amazon flywheel once or twice at least this week. Think of this as like a flywheel. It starts at the top, starts with some top-down direction. You use technology and you use some planning to help build momentum as you go through this. Call to action. What do I want you to take away from this? What do I want you to take the next steps? Well, they say make a call to action 3 things. So I'm going to take some creative license here and call 1A and 1B and 3A and 3C, just so that I can fit into this. They're also aligned to Amazon's leadership principles. So the first one is think big, and think big on behalf of your customer. Like, I would encourage you to think about the art of the possible. Don't just think about what's going to happen in the next 6 to 12 months. Try and take a longer term view. I work with customers and I try and work with them on their 3 to 5 year roadmap and what that might look like and what that looks like for their customers. So I encourage you to think big, but think big on behalf of your customers as well. 2, bias for action. So engage with your AWS account manager. They can make sure that you're aligned with specialists like Malini or myself, partners who can help you along the way with this, but also the programs that AWS have making available to you. Example being the Migration and Modernization Acceleration Program. Program near and dear to my heart, but that's, if you can get aligned with that, that's going to help you through this process. 3A and 3B, learn and be curious and dive deep. So this week you're at reInvent. There is no better time for you to lean in and to learn about new things, new ideas, new ways of doing so. So I would encourage you to take advantage of this week. I would also encourage you, and this is the key part and one of the reasons I think, certainly when I was a customer, reInvent was so powerful, is you get to speak to other customers. You get to speak to other companies that are in the same situation as you. So I would encourage you to do that. Learn from other attendees, dive in, take a page out of Fullsteam's book. Sajan would be delighted to talk to you about how he did that value mapping. So with that, that's our session. I appreciate you taking the time. Thank you so much for attending.